Hi, Mickey.
Hey, Bob.
How you doing? You're holding up a paper. It says, your appointment confirmation. Mickey, congratulations. Are we headed for vaccination?
We're headed for Moderna.
Moderna.
Something I can do that you can't do, Bob.
How do you know?
Well, because you don't qualify age-wise. Oh, there's this morbidity.
In New Jersey, I qualify because of the... Although I am just shy of the age threshold in New Jersey, I do have the comorbidity that I keep promising to reveal in the Parrot Room, but I've decided I should drive a harder bargain, like only when we reach, 1,000 patrons.
You should be mysterious about it, but it's sort of like a learner's permit. You're only 15 and a half, but they let you in anyway,
Yeah, it's like instead of having an adult sitting next to you, you have to have a comorbidity sitting next to you. It's like
but you don't have an appointment, Bob.
Yeah, you're really kind of taking the wind out of my sails. First, you bring up my comorbidity, and then you note that even though I have one, I don't have an appointment. That's true.
You're on to me. It's the neg, Bob.
When is the appointment for me? I've heard accounts of people. I don't want to take the wind out of your sails, but I have heard of people showing up for these appointments, and they've run out of stuff. Something goes wrong. It can happen. I wouldn't get too chipper about this.
That wouldn't happen at Beverly Hills. Crossroads of the Stars.
Wouldn't happen under the auspices of Gavin Newsom, who's more popular than ever, I'm told.
Well, it's interesting. He's getting this recall petition is obviously going to succeed and that they're going to get on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And I all of a sudden, everybody I know, it was like a sort of a subtle, it happened gradually, then suddenly, everybody's getting vaccinated. And it's almost as if you were a conspiracy-minded person...
You think he was holding out the vaccines for a time when he needed them politically. I will note that Mickey has aluminum foil on his head now.
No, it's not that. It's that Biden would have realized, damn, I don't want this guy to be out of office when I'm running for re-election, or it's bad for the Democrats if Newsom actually loses his recall campaign. So I'm going to ship a lot of vaccine so he looks good. And California is ramping up the vaccinations. Under some measures, we're ahead of New York, which is crazy because New York has this huge health infrastructure and it's all concentrated in New York City. And you'd think they would, beat the crap out of us, but they're not. We've given doses to a higher percentage of our state now than they have. And so I suspect benign political machinations, i.e., they actually decided to get the job done.
Well, and in support of your theory, didn't Biden establish actual kind of federal vaccine distribution points in California? He's done that in some places, right? Where it kind of seems to go straight from the federal government to some location where tons of people can get it at once.
But there are these huge sites, but they seem to be state and county sites.
I thought I heard otherwise. Okay.
No, but the ones I know of in California are state and county sites. I think he is trying to establish federal ones. I don't think they're up and running yet. Maybe they are. But we have city sites, we have county sites, we have state sites. It's totally overlapping, totally insane hodgepodge.
Well, New Jersey's the same way. It's like, tell me this. In California, can you at least just go put your name in at one site and be done with it and know that now you're in line? Because in New Jersey, you can do that at the state level, but if you want to really increase your chances, there's a dozen other places that, you have to go to the county level, even I think the municipality level, and you got to be signing in all these different places. It's crazy.
There's this, the last site I saw, there were like 3 places you could go to sign up. They were all different. But once you have an appointment, you're in. It's not like you have to worry about
why should we all waste our time? I mean, I believe computers are capable of replicating information, or am I getting it mixed up with another technology?
But that is, the government he's rolling out a program called My Turn, which is, I think, supposed to do that. But anytime the government gets involved in computers and designing a new program that's going to integrate everything, it's always a disaster. The reason the vaccine distribution is so bad, apparently, is because this Deloitte program that they spend millions of dollars on, not that many millions, but millions, developing to distribute the vaccine. Everybody hates it. Doesn't work.
Wait, what's the Deloitte? What is that? What do you mean? What is the Deloitte program?
There's a program called the VAMS or the VSMA or something that the Trump administration commissioned from Deloitte, which is a big federal contractor for IT systems, to track the vaccine, and all the states were supposed to use it to track the vaccine. And the smart one said, "This program's crap. We're using our own system." But a lot of people use the government system, and it didn't work very well. It's fine. It's a hodgepodge. At least what they have is working.
And Trump is responsible for this Deloitte fiasco. Then
I think it started under him. Yeah,
we should impeach him.
There's plenty of blame to go around and plenty of credit. I mean, Trump gets some credit too, and Biden gets credit. I don't think Biden is conspicuously fucked up yet. I think he gets credit for actually speeding things up a bit.
But he hasn't. I think. Well, he did just announce another. We now have contracted, I think, between Moderna and Pfizer, the two with the highest efficacy rate. We now apparently have enough for 300 million people. That's all that's going to want them in America. And plus, we have J&J. We now have. Now they're not all here yet.
They don't arrive till July.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how he's doing public relations wise. I don't think it's been masterful by any means.
But he hasn't done the worst thing which is we have to assure equity in distribution. And we have to slow down the vaccine rollout to make sure that underserved communities are served first. He's tried to serve underserved communities, but he hasn't slowed it down. So I don't know. I think it's a big plus for him, even if he's bad on the messaging.
Okay, we'll take that. Well, the numbers are improving predictably. The deaths are now declining seemingly pretty sharply, and I would expect that to continue.
The cases are plummeting so rapidly.
And hospitalizations. Those two have been going down sharply for a while, but deaths now are clearly dropping.
It's very similar to what happened in New York. All of a sudden, it started dropping mysteriously. And do we understand it? Do we blame that all on masking?
Well, no, it's like overdetermined.
Maybe.
You blame what? You mean the initial?
We give credit to the drop, the precipitous drop that's underway now.
Remember, there had been the holidays that probably made things worse than, So first of all, you get the holidays over and you've no longer got people congregating at that rate. The vaccines are starting to kick in. And then the organic herd immunity, I guess you could call it, which is the, immunity that's not due to vaccination, I think has got to, seems to have, I would guess, has built up to an appreciable level.
Is it possible that there is some internal rhythm to the virus that we don't know about and it just does what it does everywhere it goes?
I think it's safe to say that it does do what it does. I can sign on to that.
But I mean, if you look at all across the world, the patterns are sort of similar. No matter what they do, the patterns are similar. And maybe it's seasonal. Maybe it depends on the Earth's magnetic field. Who the hell knows?
Well, there are different seasons in different places. I mean, the South had a bigger summer spike, and there was some speculation that had to do with air conditioning. The heat driving people indoors into air-conditioned building. I don't know. But here's an alarming thing I heard from my wife today. A study that if you use a study finding that when they use the blood plasma, which is, I think, the equivalent of the monoclonal antibodies, functionally, the virus within a given person will mutate faster. Now, I don't know, it's just one study, but I can imagine reasons that might be. I mean, anyway.
If you use the Regeneron or the monoclonal?
That's correct. Regeneron is the company that makes the monoclonal antibodies.
There are two of them.
Oh, okay, it's one.
But that's the main one.
Or organic. I think the study may have been done with blood plasma, but it's presumably the same kind of effect because you're introducing antibodies that aren't yours. And that could be, we're just getting wildly conjectural. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But I was thinking it may be that vaccines naturally mutate once they sense antibodies. And it could be that if you bring in blood plasma or the monoclonal antibodies, then there's both your antibodies and a discernibly different kind of antibodies they're facing. And so you get twice the mutations. That is totally worthless speculation. If we did editing, that would be on the cutting room floor. We should go to impeachment or something where
I thought it just mutations just happen. It's not that they're not intent on the part of the virus.
Mutations happen naturally in nature, but what I'm wondering, I should have researched this, is whether, I mean, look, as I understand it, I think the antibodies themselves are kind of playing a certain kind of mutation game in the sense that I think your body sends out a bunch of different kinds, and then the kind that succeed in locking onto the vaccine, it makes more of those. Okay, so it's playing a kind of its own little natural selection game, and it would seem to make sense that viruses would have adapted to play the same game locally within the organism. I can't believe I'm going on and on about this. It is total bullshit.
This is getting into Trump's territory. What if we put the light inside the body?
Well, I was thinking if you do that and inject the bleach at the same time, you cut the mutation rate in half. That's what I'm thinking.
One more virus note. That Israel claims to have 2 cures, not vaccines, but cures.
Wait, who does?
Israel.
Okay.
Israeli time. But if you read the story, they're sort of not total cures. They're like They stopped the cytokine storm. Okay,
well, that's at the end.
If you're one of the people who's going to die of the cytokine storms, they have something.
That's
for you.
The immune that's the overreaction of your immune system at the end.
But that's only like I think 9 or 10% of the cases. I don't think that's the usual. That's not the only way to die of COVID.
Yeah.
So, but it's promising. Would create political problems.
Wait, spell them out.
Israel distributing its vaccine, its cure in the Arab world, in the Muslim world.
Well, they already have that problem with the vaccine, at least as far as the Palestinians go. I mean, there is a whole.
No, but it would be like in Saudi Arabia. Are they going to buy 100 million doses of the Israeli cure?
Well, I mean, it depends on whether Israel has excess. Why is this? What is this an issue for? It's an issue for the Arab countries politically more than Israel. You're saying?
Yeah, I would.
Because they don't want to be seen buying stuff from Israel.
Yeah.
Well, they're officially Saudi Arabia, UAE, and so on are now friends with Israel.
Okay.
Thanks to the Abraham Accords, Mickey.
Thank you, Jared.
I think we should
saving humanity once.
We should both thank Jared.
Okay, you wanted to get off this subject.
I was thinking, since we know nothing about it, that might happen. I mean, there is this issue. There is an interesting issue of the global haves and have-nots, the so-called like vaccine nationalism. We actually have a little item about this in the Weekend blog, which is the Friday edition of the Nonzero newsletter, Mickey. Like South Africa and I think Pakistan, some other less affluent nations were seeking a suspension of patent protection for the vaccine, and they got swatted down by the World Trade Organization, as I recall, or something like that. But there's on the one hand the kind of justice issue, but it's also true that you're probably not serving the overall. You're probably prolonging the life of the pandemic if you distribute the vaccine solely in accord with wealth, right? That's probably true within a society,
right.
And it's probably true globally. And so there are, even if your conscience isn't hurting because of the unequal distribution globally, it's something worth thinking about just from a utilitarian point of view.
I agree.
Impeachment. So, what's your take? Have you been glued to the set?
I have not. No, I haven't. I haven't. I've been ignoring it. My impression, just reading the accounts, is that the Democrats have failed. You know, they have a lot of emotion about this horrible thing that happened, mm-hmm. but they haven't really said that Trump is responsible. I mean, there were a whole bunch of people at the demonstration in front of the Capitol. Only some went into the Capitol. Is Trump responsible for the people who were there peacefully or for the people who went in violently? I've been in a lot of demonstrations. I've even organized demonstrations, okay, that were peaceful, yeah. But 10% of the people go off and wreak mayhem, okay? Was I responsible for the 10% that wreaked mayhem? At the time, I said no. That happens all the time with demonstrations. unless you can really link Trump like he had some contact with the organizers who were violent, or he sent their text messages, or as we've talked about, in the aftermath, if he conspicuously failed in his duty. And they did come up with one piece of evidence that I know about, which is the phone call to Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah.
Who said...
Which is amazing, right? This is after the writers are, well, go ahead and tell the story.
No, but my impression is he calls the wrong number. He calls Senator Lee, or this is controversial,
and this
too.
is after they have... they're either about to evacuate the Senate. The rioters are in the Capitol, and Trump is still lobbying, right?
Right. So but that just shows he's clueless. That's an exculpatory thing.
Well, come on. You could say he's callous. He's indifferent.
And it could be either way. If we had a trial, we would determine this. These are the things. These are the unanswered questions. Tuberville tells him they've just whisked away the vice president, and then he tweets out his vice presidential thing. Now, you can interpret that two ways.
Now, do we know that that's the sequence? Tuberville tells him that, and then he does the tweet?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Okay.
And so that could go two ways. One is he knows Pence is in danger, and he tweets it recklessly. And the other is he thinks Pence is safe. He's been whisked away, and he tweets it. So look, they haven't nailed it down. You got to nail it before you convict somebody of a big thing. You have to nail it down.
There's no way that tweet is not deeply damning. He knows these guys are running rampant in the building, and he is revving them up further. He knows those two things. Leave Pence aside. He is inciting them at that moment in real time, knowing what the situation is. I mean, that to me, the one smart thing, I don't think the Democrats, to the extent, I haven't watched it assiduously, but I do think they rightly emphasized that tweet. I don't think it's been a great presentation by any means, and I think there's been at least one major lapse, but that tweet is about the single most damning thing Trump did relate. I think that tweet alone is grounds for impeachment. And I, as you know, I don't really think impeachment's necessarily a good idea politically, but that tweet is grounds for impeachment. That alone, it's unbelievable that he did that.
What do you think they conspicuously left out?
Well, I've been saying for weeks, I think the Democrats should use this as a pedagogical opportunity. I mean, look, the outcome is predetermined, okay? That's not the game we're playing here. We're putting on a show for the public. And if you're the Democrats, I would think you want to kind of pull some people away from Trump. And in particular, if you can reduce the number of people who think or suspect that the election may have been stolen, that would be a good thing. And as I've said, one thing they should do is bring out specific misinformation Trump was peddling, both in the speech on January 6th and before, specific claims he made about the election that are demonstrably wrong, like he said X number of dead voters, there were X number of dead voters in this state, and then you bring in the evidence that, well, he got this number here, and here's why it's bullshit, or he says this about State Farm Arena, here's the part of the video they don't show you. As I've been saying, they needed to do things like that, both, first of all, in hopes of it wouldn't have been hard to create nice videos for like each thing he got wrong, just get them out there, and make some people who are kind of on the fence convinced that, hey, this guy really was full of shit about the election. That would be nice. And then, I was just going to say, and then, it's the one thing his lawyers would be unable to address. And you could always say, look, we presented this evidence and they were speechless. Whereas lawyers are able to address other dimensions and even exploit, I would say, other dimensions of the Trump lawyers' presentation.
Well, I think I love the idea of making little web like video things and sending them around. That's a really good idea.
Well, the Democrats are doing that. They're just doing it along a different dimension.
But they could do it at the impeachment trial, but it would open the door for Trump to contest the election, which is what he wants to do. And he could go on and on. He's not going to sit there speechless. Look, you have 20 facts you've refuted. He's going to have 40 more facts for you to refute.
No, but see, that doesn't help.
He's going to very effectively muddy the waters in terms of reaching the public.
First of all,
Mickey, of course it helps.
If he wants to do that, if he thinks it'll help him, he should do it. He can do it now. It is mentioned, I think, in the articles of impeachment that he was spreading misinformation. So he can do that now. I mean,
well, but he's really going to do it if the Democrats bring up the subject.
No, the Democrats brought it up, Mickey. The Democrats did say, they said, like, he tweeted.
But they didn't put on evidence.
Well, in the sense that they're putting on evidence at all, they in fact did. They said, on such and such date, Trump tweeted, dead people voted, and that's all, and he didn't back it up. Okay, they said that at the impeachment. They are bringing up the issue. If he wants to rebut, he can rebut now. But I'm telling you, if they could point to like 5 specific claims he made, we showed their bullshit, his lawyers couldn't answer them, that would be an accomplishment. But what they've done now is, they have actually, clearly they were better prepared than the lawyers. But today, and we're taping this on the day that the lawyers did their side of the case and then kind of rested their case, although I guess there are now going to be questions or something. But what you saw Trump's lawyers doing now, predictably, was weaving the Democratic presentation into the Trump narrative. The Trump narrative has always been, A, they hate us, and B, they lie. Fake news. And the Democrats, by presenting these videos where you hear Trump say we're marching to the Capitol and you don't hear him say peacefully and patriotically, that allows the Trump lawyers to say, oh, here's what they didn't show you. It's a doctored video, right? And naturally, any videotape heavy rhetorical presentation of the kind the Democrats gave is going to ultimately be susceptible to this because you're going to edit stuff out. And so, I mean, they did not do a masterful job of this. It's like amateur hour. I mean, the Trump lawyers. It's like amateur hour, granted, but they emphasize that, and then they emphasize the hatred, which wasn't particularly relevant, logically. But these two themes, Democrats hate us and they're lying. They established, I think, well enough for the purposes of their own media ecosystem, which is where they know this is going.
You actually watch these things?
I just like turn on the radio when I'm in the shower. I tape it and maybe watch 15 minutes. I kind of keep, and look, half of the whole point of this is it shows up on Twitter, right? That's what they're both doing, is trying to generate Twitter-friendly stuff.
I thought that the cavalry thing was hilarious, but
no. Do you know the truth about that?
No, you tell it.
Okay, so the Democrats had this tweet where they said, this Trump supporter tweeted, we're going to bring the cavalry. Right. Okay. And somebody said, and so they presented that. And then they said, look, the word isn't cavalry, it's Calvary. It's a Christian term. She's saying we're bringing, okay, but that's bullshit. She just misspelled it. I used to do this. I got, no, seriously, Mickey. She says, do you know what Calvary is in Christianity?
Yes, correct.
It's the hill on which Christ died.
I have a vague sense of that.
Christians never put the word "the" in front of it. It's not the Calvary, it's Calvary. Christ died on Calvary or at Calvary. That's it.
She's making a pun.
No, fine. What do you mean?
Play on words.
My point is,
we're bringing the Calvary.
She said bringing the Calvary.
Right.
First of all, look, Matt Lewis, who is a Christian and a conservative, tweeted, wait a second, nobody says bringing the cavalry. And he wasn't even talking about the part. And then I added that to his analysis on Twitter, the fact that you never put the word "the" in front of it. There's no fucking way she was. What would that mean? We're bringing the hill? We're bringing the
It's a joke, Bob. It's a
not
play
a joke.
on words. It's witty.
It's not a joke. See, this is not a witty person.
She's using language, and how do you know? Do you put her on the stand and prove that she's not witty?
We're bringing the Calvary.
She used to write for Breitbart.
She would be the first Christian in the entire history of Christianity to use that turn of phrase. It just doesn't happen.
Did they make your point at the trial?
The Democrats? No, they're clueless, but it's true. I was going to make this point before I saw Matt's tweet. She just misspelled it.
I go ahead and make that. I love to see the shit you're going to get if you make that point online.
I made it. I made it on Twitter, Mickey. What are you talking about?
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it's there. It didn't get that much action. Matt's tweet got a lot of action.
Huh. Okay. Then what about the fake? What about Swalwell adding a blue check mark? I
missed that.
The smoking blue check mark. He gratuitously gave this woman a blue check mark to make it.
Oh, surely he wouldn't be that stupid. Why? He really?
Mr. Fang Fang, not that stupid? He's pretty stupid.
Now, Mickey, he's not married. He had a romantic relationship with a woman who turned out to be a spy from China, right? Is that what happened?
Best girl he ever had.
Mickey, you could get a lot of cancellation this week, and you could. I want to talk about that later. A lot of cancellation. Be careful what you say about Fang Fang. Yeah.
Was it because of? No, I just meant that she was. His parents liked her because she was a nice girl. That's really all I meant.
And you're saying Fang Fang wasn't nice?
No, you
could get so canceled for saying that.
I'm saying a nice Chinese spy. Why can't you bring him a nice Chinese spy like
you doing with a sleazy politician like that?
Anyway,
wait. Speaking of this general subject, can I just say one thing, Mickey? I have every reason to believe our podcast will continue to flourish, but if it doesn't, and you need a second line of work, it just occurred to me yesterday. I've got 3 words for you, okay? The first one is tantric.
Tantric blogging?
Did you miss this whole story?
No.
Marjorie Taylor Greene had an affair with a tantric sex guru. Did you miss this?
Well, who wouldn't?
Well, precisely. That's what I mean. You're tailor-made. You totally get it.
Is she single?
Oh, this is perfect. I mean, if you look at the picture of the tantric sex guru, he frankly reminds me a little of you.
I should become a tantric sex guru?
I'm just saying, if the podcast thing doesn't work out.
How do you know I'm not already a tantric sex guru?
That's my point. You look kind of a little bit like him. You know what the telltale sign would be? He posed.
It's my side
He posed without his shirt on. So here's the question I have for you. This is the litmus test. Do you partially shave your chest so that the hair forms what looks like kind of a Superman shield? There's no S, but I mean, it's like a triangular shield thing. Do you do that?
No.
Okay, but you could.
My chest hair has gotten me in trouble before, I think.
I think we've heard enough about that. Okay. You didn't. I can't believe you didn't hear about the Marjorie Taylor Greene story.
Keep it in check. No, I'm sorry. I must have been doing something with welfare.
No, I spent 5 minutes trying to think of a good tantric sex guru space laser joke and couldn't.
So a couple of things. Bill Kristol hasn't given up the ghost. He still thinks there might be 17 votes.
Hope springs eternal in his brain.
His list was fairly convincing. He listed 17 wishy-washy Republican sellouts, and sure enough, they're there.
Yeah, but that was before the cavalry thing, Mickey. That's
before your tweet.
It was before my tweet.
Your tweet turned it around, Bob.
It ain't going to be turned around.
Your tweet was like the cavalry coming to death.
My question is, will that guy from Louisiana even stick with him? The guy who flipped in between the two votes.
Cassidy?
Yeah. Is he going to vote for impeachment? For conviction?
God, as long as you flip, you might as well stay flipped. I mean, anyway, the other thing is I thought a crazy solution would be, which is impossible, is convict him but don't bar him from office. Because what's depressing about this is it's become a partisan way to get rid of one of your political opponents.
Right.
And if the Democrats use it against Trump, the Republicans are going to use it against somebody else they don't want to run for office. And that's the sort of cheesy thing about it. So, but I guess reasonable minds could say he's guilty of an impeachable offense, although I would like more evidence. But so that was my compromise. But it's impossible because the vote to bar is only a majority vote. So if they have 2/3 to convict, they're definitely going to have 50% to bar.
Yeah, but they're not going to convict.
I want to see Trump's aides who were there at the time saying, we told him you have to call out the National Guard, and he said, ha, 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 no, let them suffer for a while, okay? Then he's dead. But they don't call those witnesses. Those witnesses, as Jonathan Turley said, are practically standing outside with sandwich boards saying, call me, call me. They're not calling them.
Are people actually kind of making noises about wanting to testify?
According to Turley, it's hard to believe. One of them is this guy that he tried to sneak into the CIA, who presumably is very loyal. But I guess loyalty is why be loyal to Trump if he's on the way out?
Well, first of all, I don't think anything gets you to conviction unless it moves the needle of public opinion significantly. I mean, these senators know he did something impeachable. They just don't want to mess with the base.
But they're all making the point that they failed to connect the dots. So if they connect the dots, it will be harder to do.
You think the public would be swayed?
Well, some would, but,
public has to move on
it wouldn't be enough to convict. It wouldn't be enough to convict, but they failed to make their case. They have to make their case.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, both sides have given up on persuasion. They're just generating stuff for their own social media ecosystems. That is what it has come to. And the Democrats could have done better. They could have had it both ways. But did they take my advice? No.
We already have the name for this podcast by this episode.
What would that be called? Tantric Sex Guru?
I have no idea what I'm talking about.
We spent a lot of time on that. But I could be right. I just want to stress that I could be right on several things I've said. And that's over the last couple of years. It's totally possible.
Some of the commenters on the Blogging Head site, not on the Patreon site, but the Blogging Head site, pointed out that I didn't know what I was talking about vaccines. Let's see what they do to you on mutation.
Oh, and did I admit that I made a mistake? 2 weeks ago, I said that in return for signing on to the Abraham Accords, I didn't profess certainty. I was saying I think that Trump recognized Sudan's sovereignty over some areas.
You corrected yourself.
Yeah,
you did that.
I did. Okay, that was Morocco. That was Morocco.
Okay. Other things we have to talk about. What do we do with the Trumpists? We have Bruce Springsteen versus Virginia Heffernan.
Oh, I missed that. What did you think of the Springsteen Jeep ad, for starters? Before you knew he had a DWI rap from...
Before I knew it was Springsteen, okay, I didn't know it was Springsteen. There was a guy there who looked vaguely like Springsteen. He looked beaten down and weathered, completely actually reflecting, I think, the mood of the country after Trump. You've been beaten down. You're sort of, it's cold. I thought it was very, very effective. And then I realized, wait, he looks vaguely like Bruce Springsteen. Maybe it actually is Bruce Springsteen.
I wasn't sure.
And it was.
And then I saw the earring in his ear and I thought, yeah, that's Bruce.
When did this earring come in?
You can see it at the end.
I can see it. I saw it, but is an earring a symbol of Bruce?
Well,
I also, never realized that.
When did he develop a kind of twang? I guess that has to be an affectation if it's always been part of him.
No, I think it's an affectation.
He's from New Jersey.
Bob, I saw Bruce at Charlie's Kitchen, a burger joint in Harvard Square in 1974. And I wrote a rave review, and the rest is history. It's like, he'd be nothing without me, okay?
Why didn't you?
So I launched this guy, but then I sort of somewhere after Born in the USA, I sort of lost track of what he was doing, and he went out west. He made Nebraska. He made a country album, so he got a little.
So you really wrote a favorable review before anyone had heard of him?
No, people had heard of him. Peter Nobler at Crawdaddy
had John Landau written a famous review at this point?
No, that's the point. John Landau was at the same concert I was, wrote a condescending review saying Bruce Springsteen, he has a lot of potential, but he has to do this and this and this. I wrote a flat-out rave, and who winds up as Bruce Springsteen's manager?
So it's kind of like me and Blogging Heads, too far ahead of your time.
Right, and then a month later, John Landau sees him at another concert and says, I have seen the future of rock and roll, and it's Bruce Springsteen. That's the famous review.
Or maybe if you'd used that line, it would have worked out for you.
Could be. I could be like Seth Stevenson in American Apparel Sweatshirts, who said this is the greatest hoodie in America. And they're still, 20 years later, they're still using that quote from Seth Stevenson and Slade, the greatest hoodie in America. So I could have been the Seth Stevenson of Bruce Springsteen if I played.
You know what I was surprised by? Here's how naive I am. I saw the ad. It seemed like there was a fair amount of blowback from the left, and maybe this is what you're referring to with Virginia Heffernan. But people say, what is this shit about the middle, like meeting in the middle? He
got blowback from both sides.
Well, the people on the resistance side were like, no, we're not meeting in the middle. It's like we're right and they're wrong. And there were complaints about the Christian iconography. There was, just calm down, folks.
Anyway, the Springsteen ad stands in contrast to Virginia Heffernan, who we know from Slate. I don't know if she's still a friend of mine, but she's a former friend.
I'm on good terms with her. I can
respect. Okay, there you go. She said you were the alpha mind.
She said I was in a review of my book. Now that you brought it up, I mean, not that I remember these things, but she said I was, quote, one of America's alpha minds.
Okay. Did we talk about this last time? She wrote this thing about what do we do about the Trumpist next door? And she basically said, "Oh my God, there's a Trumpist next door, and he was nice to me. He plowed my driveway."
But that's not atonement. She said, atonement is not mine to grant, or something.
Right. And she said, but she said, I'll wave to him. I'll wave to him, and I'll give him an opportunity to basically admit he was wrong and join me in good works to correct the damage done by the Trump year. So she wasn't very forgiving.
No.
And what's more, she made explicit what was implicit in the Ann Applebaum piece, which is they have to admit they were wrong. I'm not going to learn anything from them. So it's a one-way street. And what I liked about the Bruce Springsteen ad, he implied it was a two-way street. We're each going to learn from the other. And let's so who would an ex-Trump voter like me rather run into, Bruce Springsteen or Virginia Heffernan? Forget who's the superstar. But they're both superstars in my world, and
that was excellent damage control. That was very good.
I would rather run into Bruce because he is the more empathetic of the two, to use Wrightian language, and he admits that there may be something that the non-Trumpists have to learn from the Trumpists. So I liked the ad, even though he didn't write it; it was written for him. But, I thought it was reasonably well written. It had a good message. I thought it was the message people really sort of needed to hear at the moment. And I actually liked it.
Yeah, I just don't have much patience for people on the resistance side who just demand exacting vengeance and won't settle for anything less than that.
Yeah.
I mean, the country is in serious trouble, and both sides think they're right, and that's life.
I agree, but the right gave him shit too for like, oh, he's a lifelong Democrat. How dare he make this? He's a fake cowboy. So what? He's a relatively mild. He fell into the hands of some liberal rock critics, not just John Landau, but is it Greil Marcus? Who is the big?
I don't know if Greil Marcus was huge.
There's some big rock critic who took.
Well, he was on the cover of, back when Time and Newsweek were huge things. He was on the cover of both the same week in 1975.
Right. But that was premature. That was the most famous case of. That was before he was big. Everybody,
that was what made him big. I mean, that was the moment.
No, it set him back.
No, you are so full of shit.
It set him back a year. Everybody said it was the proof of what Rick Hertzberg said about the news magazines back then, which is, the phenomenon where women who are living together get their periods at the same time. Well, the news weeklies and their covers are like that. All of a sudden, Time and Newsweek.
But they were different angles.
They have this weird tendency to produce the same people on the cover the same week. And this was totally out of the blue. Nobody had ever heard of this guy, Bruce Springsteen, and boom,
but Mickey,
he's on the cover.
Wasn't this when Born to Run came out?
No, it was before Born to Run came out.
I don't think it was. No, I think you're wrong. You may be right, though. You know more about music than I do.
I think it was before. Anyway,
I think it was a successful publicity.
Everybody laughed at him, and they said, ha, the news mags are trying to make a big deal of you. Fuck you. And it took a while for his greatness to overcome that.
That was just your hip Velvet Underground friends, Mickey. The rest of America was singing his praises.
I don't know.
I was there. I am from the real America, Mickey.
He had to fire his manager after that. His manager engineered the whole thing.
Well, and John Landau, this was a coup. That's a funny thing. John Landau, who wrote that review, became his manager, right? Or something.
Yeah. I actually saw John not only became his manager, he actually appeared on stage in the band playing guitar. And I saw him once at the L.A. Coliseum, and there's this incredible noise, and all of a sudden Bruce says, "Take it away, John!" And there's dead silence because John really isn't that good a musician. Anyway, I nurse a huge grudge against John Lennon. Anyway, I like the ad. The right wingers were wrong too. Molly Hemingway went on a jag about how horrible this ad was.
Well, this is just a testament to how grim the predicament is. There is probably no ad you could produce. But the good news is Biden has put heart-shaped signs up that say unity in the White House lawn. That ought to do it. That ought to do it.
I think J.D. Vance could deliver the speech that brings us together.
Now you want J.D. Vance to run for president, right?
I do. I sent him an email saying he should run for senator from Illinois. That seat is opened up. I have not received a response.
Well, you're still looking for the successor to Trump, the leader of the Trumpist cause, who can, right?
Well, he emphasizes the Trumpist themes, which is, control of trade, control of immigration to preserve,
right?
To preserve our towns and cities and families. So he's my candidate. But he phrases it like Reagan. He phrases things in ways that go down easy and that other people can sign on to.
Okay, let's rank the Mickey.
Unlike Trump.
Let's rank the Mickey preferences for successor to Trump. Josh Hawley, Tucker Carlson.
J.D. Vance and Tucker Carlson are way ahead of Josh Hawley.
What about Matt Gaetz? What is the deal with him? Hey, and whatever happened to the story about the 19-year-old guy that he had been living with forever and claimed it was kind of like a paternal relationship or something? What was that?
I didn't follow that.
Are you serious?
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm serious.
A guy from Cuba named Nestor.
Oh, is that the pool boy?
Nestor with an O. Not in the sense of having stayed in his home, which would be with an E. But he did stay in his home.
What? Who was? But somebody else had a pool boy. Oh,
that was the event.
Falwell.
Was it Falwell or Swaggart? It was Falwell. Oh yeah, Falwell Jr. Falwell Jr. Pool boy.
Okay. I get these.
Mickey, I had to tell you about the tantric sex guru and about Matt Gaetz's 19-year-old quasi-son.
You're my go-to sex gossip, Bob.
I'm not saying it was necessarily sex with Gaetz, but it's a story that was that still has.
All I care about is Gaetz turned on Sessions and endorsed Tuberville, and that's a deal breaker for me. Fuck him.
But he is actually talented, don't you think? No.
I assume he's talented. He and Swalwell are the same person as far as I'm concerned. They're both these ambitious, unprincipled showboats. Good looking. So maybe he should maybe Gaetz should find a Chinese spy to prove his heterosexual credentials.
Careful, Mickey. A lot of cancellation. You want to talk about wait, first let's talk about the Republican Party. Wait, what were you going to say?
I think he actually proposed to somebody recently.
Who, Gaetz?
A woman, yeah.
Yeah, well, we wonder whether that's a cover-up, right? Interesting. He had never been engaged. What? You know who it is, by the way? You know who he's engaged to?
No.
The sister of Palmer Luckey, who founded Oculus and left Facebook sometime after it was discovered that he was kind of a Trump supporter, more or less, who had been doing some posting under an assumed name or something. But it's the sister of Palmer Luckey that Gaetz is engaged to. So
he's got a source of funding as well.
That's actually a point that he probably hadn't occurred to him, Mickey.
I'm sure it never occurs to politicians.
No.
Money is the last thing from their minds. We know that.
Yep, that's the beauty of the American system. They don't have to think about money.
You're about to switch to some topic.
Well,
I forget what it was.
The Republican... we're transitioning there. Wither the Republican Party. So you had all of these... A bunch of people met. A bunch of Republicans met. And there were these Lincoln Project guys who met about forming a third party.
Oh, those were pathetic people.
They didn't even rise to the level of Lincoln Project.
That was like Miles Taylor and Evan McMullen. There was like I don't know, people you would run screaming from if they came into the room.
Well, so would the Lincoln Project. So would the Lincoln Project. In fact,
I thought that was a low probability of success venture.
Which one? Oh, the third party thing?
The Evan McMullin third party, yes.
But it's interesting that they're thinking third party as opposed to thinking, hey, we're hanging on to the Republican Party and then Trumpists are going to have to...
That was encouraging
to you,
the Trumpists.
As a Trumpist who wants to take over the Republican Party.
Well, as you point, Steve Bannon has given me orders to retain the Republican Party and let them form the third party.
You laugh, but you know what his new exhortation is, and he's bringing on an expert to explain to people how to do this, is like, infiltrate is the wrong word because there's already a lot of Trumpists in like county and state GOP organizations, but it's like we've got to, go sign up, join your party, run for county GOP something or other, at the party level. He wants to flood it with Trumpists. There already are some. And this is the guy who months before the election was saying, sign up as a poll watcher. There's going to be a rumble afterwards. We got to have our people there. And so I'm just saying, yeah, I would bet on the Trumpists to inherit the Republican Party. And if the never Trumpers want to stay active in politics, maybe they better find a third party. That's what I'm saying.
Huh. Okay, well, but I don't think Steve Bannon gives the word and millions spring into action.
I think now, here's the thing about him. He has a very activist audience. Very activist. I believe that's true. I think he's, as you know, I think he's genuinely important. I think he's a horrible person.
Nikki
Haley.
It's awful, and she's an awful neocon, and she's basically will say anything that will help her. But she recently said something that I thought was a misstep. She said they were trying to nail her on like, does she support Trump or doesn't, and the press is trying to hold Trump support, hang it around people's necks and hurt them somehow, as if that hurts them in the primaries to have supported Trump. And Haley said, well, no, I don't think that's relevant. He's fallen so far so fast. So if you're Trump and you see Nikki Haley saying he's fallen so far so fast, you hate her, right?
Was this in the Politico interview? The Politico piece?
I don't know. It came out today, this morning. I read it this morning.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, no, Bannon is taking that as the establishment putting her forth as the spear carrier, like the Lindsey Grahams of and he's not happy about it. For the time.
Well, it'd be great if Trump turned on Nikki Haley. That would be terrific.
Oh, he's going to have to. I mean, it sounds like she has now turned on him. That was the news today. She has now made it official that she's turned on him.
I wasn't reading something subtle into her interview.
Well, who knows? But according to the Bannons of the world, no, this is a big and important thing where she officially kind of throws her hat in the never Trump ring.
Bannon would interpret it that way because presumably he hates her. But
and he's mildly paranoid, but he understands things.
Well, no, she will eventually. She is a never Trumper. She just tried to disguise it by sucking up to him for 4 years. So she succeeded.
Maybe the disguise is
the one thing that strikes me is one reason a minor reason I'm eager to get Trump off the stage and like rule him out. If I didn't think it was so unprincipled, I would love for them to ban him from office. Is that the Republican field is kind of strong. There's a whole lot of credible candidates. Nikki Haley presumably is one of them, but you have Hawley, Cotton,
Cotton.
Tucker.
No, Cotton's crazy. Cotton's weird.
They're Ron DeSantis. You have 4 or 5 candidates that are all better than A.B. Klobuchar and the people we saw in Christine Gillibrand or whatever Gillibrand's first name is. We saw on stage during the Democratic primaries, Yang, Pete Buttigieg. They're all more distinguished than those people, and they'd have a great primary. And Trump will just smother all that. It's like the L.A. Times, a bad organization that smothers all the potential successors.
Well, that's
get him off the stage.
The fascinating question to me is like, Should the Democrats want Trump to be able to run or not? You could make the case that they want him to be able to run because he will just keep the whole situation roiled, and yet he's not ultimately a candidate who can probably win a general election now.
So they're achieving their aim by losing the impeachment.
Well, we talked about this. Is this like three-dimensional chess by Nancy Pelosi? I don't think so. I think she's going on her gut. But
yeah. And we're not supposed to say three-dimensional chess. We're supposed to say four-dimensional chess, Bob.
No, not true. Not true. I got some.
That's what I thought. But
now, did Alex Beam write something about this? It was paywalled. Yes. Did you read it? Did he cite us? Did he cite us as having used the term?
Yes, Alex Beam, a totally benign, friendly person, snarked at us for using three-dimensional chess.
Oh man, the gloves are off now. The gloves are off. He's going to be so sorry about this.
Time is a dimension, Bob.
Oh, did he say time is? This is bullshit.
That's the argument. That you have the two-dimension, then
that's
you have
his
time.
Argument.
That's three.
That it's time.
I assume so.
So my house is four-dimensional because time happens in it. Would he say
Correct.
that?
Correct. And you're probably five-dimensional because
well, that goes without saying.
You're plugged into the noosphere or something.
Someday. Quickly. So just quick. Any thoughts on the Lincoln Project scandal?
No, couldn't. It reminds me of a Quentin Tarantino movie where the thieves all fall out and kill each other. So it couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of guys.
Two scandals, right? How much money these guys were pocketing, A, and then B, this John Weaver guy who...
Yeah, I like Stuart Stevens just because I run into him around here, and he's very, very nice to me.
Even during a pandemic?
He plowed my driveway, Bob. What can I say?
You're right. Did he?
No, but it's the sort of thing. He's nice to me. He lets me into events that I shouldn't be in. And he's a nice guy. I mean, he's a pleasant person. So, aside from Stuart Stevens, and I like Mike Murphy too. Was he a real Lincoln Projector? I don't know.
He's the type.
But they're the same type, so of course they hate each other. But they've made peace to oppose Trump. But I didn't like them, and so I thought they were over the top, and so I'm just reveling in the scandal, which was broken by my friend Ryan Jerdusky, who's a sort of solo blogger, writer, activist.
Broken how?
He tweeted, he was so pissed off by something Stuart Stevens, I think, said. They said, should I write about all the young men that John Weaver has made advances to? He'd been working on the story for a while, and that tweet gave the courage to a lot of the young men to come forward. And they confirmed Ryan's charge, and we were off to the races.
Yeah.
And Ryan also wrote like one of the first two stories about it. He'd been working on it for a while, trying to break it.
No, I mean, it's like the Lincoln Project thing. I'm kind of liking the whole contours of the thing. They come along, help defeat Trump, and then self-destruct. That's good.
Yeah. I thought the denouement of the Lincoln Project reminds me of what I think is going to happen, or what I hope is going to happen, is the New York Times with this McNeil scandal, and then the spiking the Bret Stephens column, attacking them for the McNeil scandal, and Walter Curran tweeted that it's going to be like an Agatha Christie movie, and I said no, it's going to wind up like Hamlet. I mean, you could easily see Baquet losing his job, Stevens losing his column, and finally. I don't want to get her name right, the 1619 woman, they might also realize if enough people say she's the real de facto editor of the New York Times, they may find a way to move her out of there too. So you could see the stage littered with dead bodies.
It's like the barroom scene in Inglourious Bastards.
Yes, although more
violence,
in more slow motion.
Yeah,
and she. And Walter Curran responded, well, maybe it's like the end of Titus Andronicus, which is even more violent.
I missed that one.
Everybody's dead, but some of them eat other people, and
that's going too far.
It's totally gruesome.
That won't happen. You know who? They won't eat each other.
And there was a very, very graphic and good version of Titus by Julie Taymor that came out at around 20 years ago. And you know who was the producer for that, Bob?
You? I don't know.
You should get this.
Wait, I don't know any producers. Do I? Marty Peretz?
The producer for Titus was Stephen K. Bannon.
Oh.
In his Hollywood fame.
I've heard of him.
Anyway, I just think the Times is making a fool of itself. How Sulzberger, young Sulzberger, let this happen on his watch. I mean, there's a 1% chance of getting rid of him, but he may wake up and everybody else is gone.
We had been referring to him as Pinchito because he's son of the man known as Pinch, who was the son of man known as Punch. Am I right? Do I have it right so far? But some commenter, I think it was either in the Parrot Room or on Twitter, suggested we call him Flinch, presumably because every time something like this comes up, he flinches.
Flinch is pretty good.
Flinch isn't bad.
I was for Push just because he's a pushover.
That's in third place. It's either Flinch or Pinchito. Or Flinchito.
Flinch is good. Flinch is good. Because the key to it is remembering Pinch hated Pinch. So he didn't like being called Pinch. So it doesn't have to be something he likes. Flinch is good.
Flinch.
I like Flinch.
Flinch Sulzberger.
Thank you, reader, whoever you are.
Maybe we can track this
down.
down.
Viewer.
Yeah, that was good. So on the cancel culture front, I mean, it has been... Okay, so first of all, the McNeil thing broke last week in between our taping of the podcast and the Parrot Room. So we did talk about it a little in the Parrot Room. Didn't know that much about it. I do have one question about it. People are probably familiar with the story. He's the health writer for the New York Times, or was. He went down on one of these tours with students that I'm sure the Times is like pushing the reporters to do, right? Because it's a revenue source. This poor guy's like, yeah, I'll help you out. I'll go down to Peru, maybe do a little drinking in the presence of students. No.
Right. And he gets a bunch of woke, rich, liberal white people who call him out on this refusal to denounce white supremacy.
Well, the problem was he used the N-word. And the way he used it.
Right. But one of the charges was that he said he didn't think white supremacy was a thing.
Well, see, that's just a definitional question, as you know. In his generation, what we meant by white supremacy when we were young is not a thing.
That was one of the charges against him that had some traction in the Times that helped get him fired.
Well, I think the key...
Constructively.
But here's...
Constructively fired.
My question about the N-word is, he says a student asked whether some 12-year-old should have been punished for using it, and in asking to hear more about the context, he used the word. I do wonder. I mean, I generally agree the Times has overreacted to several things, but I don't really know the facts in this case. And my question is, why could he not just say N-word? That's what I would have done. I guarantee you that's how I would have conducted the
now
evenings.
You would have, but
no.
Then,
I've always been like that.
Well, you're very cautious.
I just had the N-word bleeped on Blogging Heads.
You'll go far.
And by the way, this call was before the McNeil thing. It was just...
You're like the Flinchito of
No, it's just unnecessary. It was a white guy saying it. It's like, you don't have to...
No, that's very prudent of you. That's very prudent. I agree. I'd support that. But I could see him doing that. I don't know. It seems... If that's what really happened, it seems like a total bogus reason to fire somebody.
We're running out of time probably, but there is more to talk about in the Parrot Room, cancel culture-wise. I mean, look, there's the Gina Carano on the right, and meanwhile, and Nathan Robinson on the left, a socialist, also.
Okay, we have
some
cancellations.
Column.
We should have a cancellation of the week feature.
But my favorite one, somebody who runs Readings Books in Australia, in Melbourne, here's the story. They had some person named, somebody said they would do this event with the bookstore so long as the bookstore agreed to publicly apologize for hosting somebody named Julie Bindell, who apparently was taken as transphobic. But anyway, the best part is they apologized, but now the latest is this. Readings Books, this is a tweet, now regrets the apology. They've apologized for the apology. We're in new territory, Mickey.
And so they get the book reading, make the sales, and then they apologize for the apology. That's very, very clever.
I don't know what the sequence was, but this is we're now in uncharted terrain. They are apologizing for the apologies.
I apologize for all my apologies.
I feel exactly the same way.
And I apologize for that as well.
I don't go that far.
Actually, Harry Shearer has beaten us to this on his weekly radio show. He had something called Apologies of the Week.
No, he plays the "We're So Sorry" Uncle Albert as he does it. Yes, he's a genius.
So, are we almost through? Because we haven't talked about the Biden child allowance plan, which
sounds fascinating, Mickey. Okay, go ahead.
It's a big deal. It's more, it looks like they're not going to stick the minimum wage in the reconciliation bill where it only needs 50 votes to pass. So pass the Senate. So
what is the bill? What does the bill do?
But there is in the bill. There's a bill that gives, I think, $3,000 to every parent of a child for each child.
Regardless of income?
No, it cuts off at like, I don't know, somewhere way high up the income ladder to avoid a steep cutoff. But it gives it to whether or not you work or not. Heretofore, Congress has been very careful to only give a child tax credit, which because it's a tax credit and is not refundable, goes only to people who earn some income to be taxed. This is like the old welfare system. It gives cash, worse than the old welfare system, cash, no strings, to every parent of a child, whether they work or not. And people like me say that's bad because it enables mothers, including single mothers, including unmarried, never married single mothers, to have a child and live in combination with other various forms of aid and however people live in those at that low income, to live without ever sending anybody into the workforce. Mm-hmm. So it allows generation after generation of non-workers. And that's what we didn't like about the welfare system, and Biden is recreating it. It's only 1 year in the bill. It's only for 1 year, but it is in the bill. And Democrats want to obviously renew it. You can justify it as a temporary pandemic response, but they want to make it permanent.
But don't
and Romney has a similar bill.
Yeah, well,
so there's some Republican buy-in.
Don't conservatives like Ross Douthat like this? Subsidizing child bearing?
Somehow they think it's so important that we have more babies. Why, when robots are taking our jobs, is it so important that we have more people? I don't know.
Well,
but.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, that is a view. So you're against this. I am surmising.
I'm against it, but it's a genuine threat that has to be met. I'm heartened that people like Rubio have come out against it, but if they include it in reconciliation, and if Kyrsten Sinema and Manchin and all the other Democrats are for it, it may actually happen. So that it seems to me that's a big active fight, along with the immigration fight. Maybe it's even more alive than the immigration amnesty at this point. Will they stick this? Will this stay in the reconciliation bill? Is a very important political fight.
Now, speaking of immigration, Mickey, I want to ask you if there is possibly some common ground between us. You would like to reduce the number of people who are streaming to America from the South seeking asylum. I would like to end our policy of gratuitously imposing sanctions on countries that are already impoverished and thus further immiserating the population. Now,
right.
That brings us to Venezuela. Why don't immigration restrictionists say, end the sanctions on Venezuela? Things are bad enough down there. You're generating enough refugees. Stop.
That'd be a very good point. I don't think they're generating enough for them to catch the attention of the immigration.
I don't know. The total number of refugees over time that are said to have been generated by the Venezuelan crisis is well into the millions. But
they all moved to the countries next door. They haven't come here.
But that's not the end of it. Anyway,
yeah.
Jake.
Anyway,
can I just say one thing? Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor Joe Biden, said before the administration, but during the Trump years, said he wants to, quote, double down on sanctions against Venezuela, which makes no sense.
Most of the people I know in the immigration restrictionist community are anti-interventionists. So they would actually be receptive to this idea.
Well, get on board with this.
I'll bring it up to them.
Okay.
Mainly Mark Krikorian is the guy I'm thinking of. But
I leave it to you.
It's in my portfolio. I feel tasked.
It's your mission.
Tasked. We're meeting in the middle, Bob.
As we so often do.
It is. The Biden administration is being very canny in that it's reversed the Remain in Mexico program, which actually was a step beyond. We thought they were going to keep it because they don't want those people streaming in, but they're like sneaking them in the dead of night at unknown locations. There are 25,000 of them. They're hoping that they can reverse all of Trump's policies without provoking a huge surge of. Am I allowed to say surge? You can't call it. You can't say horde. You can't say. You have to really watch whatever word you use. But I think surge is a harmless electrical term. Surge of migrants, would-be asylees at the border, and I don't think they can pull it off. But if they can pull it off, they really are extremely competent.
Well, after last week, you probably saw this. After you said there is a brewing crisis at the border that awaits Biden, I think the next day there was a piece in either the Times or the Post. I think it was the Times about this. Did you see that piece? The headline.
There've been a bunch of pieces. It's everybody knows it's happening now. Nick Miroff of the Washington Post has covered it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't and but they don't use the word crisis. They say it's a challenge or something.
Yeah.
And they don't call them apprehensions of illegals. It's encounters near the southern border now, which they have some euphemism for apprehending illegals.
That's a different matter. So we've been going appreciably over an hour, Mickey. Anything you want to talk about can be talked about in the Parrot Room, which people can get access to by going to patreon.com/Parrot Room and becoming patrons.
Are we going to talk about the Marty Peretz article?
I will read it in between now and then and Parrot Room. Yes, so we can. Marty wrote a piece in Tablet, I guess, dissing Rob Malley, whom I wrote a piece in defense of in the Nonzero newsletter, available in its archives.
And we have 2 cancellations to talk about. Not 1, but 2. Maybe 3.
Cancel culture cancellations?
Yeah. You outlined them.
Yeah. There's even more. We didn't mention the woman who was canceled by the New York Times for saying she got chills when she saw Joe Biden on Inauguration Day or whatever. Remember her?
Oh, right.
I think they're trying to establish balance, right? They're like, because this was not they weren't caving to wokeism here. They were caving to the right. They are an equal opportunity caver. Is the New York Times it used to say all the news is fit to print. Now it says equal opportunity caver.
I had some take on that wasn't that take. I will go look it up. But the Times is obviously has a weird position regarding tweets because A, the tweets reveal the real biases of their reporters. Mm-hmm. B, the tweets deliver the news not only sooner than the actual New York Times, but more comprehensively than the New York Times. I mean, Maggie Haberman's Twitter feed throughout the Trump administration was a much better news feed than anything you're going to find on the New York Times. So, and she's too big for them to restrain, so they take it out on this little woman here.
That's an interesting,
contract employee.
I may push back on that theory in the Parrot Room. Also,
people have said we plug the Parrot Room too much.
You know what?
I have had that feedback.
These are people. Who are these people?
My friends. Why is Bob pushing the Parrot Room so much?
They don't have a theory? They don't have a theory as to why we want more patrons?
No, they know why you're pushing they know why you're pushing the Parrot Room.
They think it's counterproductive?
They don't want to hear it. They're listening to the free podcast. They don't want to hear.
Are they patrons?
Constantly be reminded that there's this better party going on later that they're not invited to unless they pay the freight.
They're invited. We invite everyone. Some people choose not to come. Apparently, your friends are among those, Mickey. And if you ask me, do I mind making them suffer? The answer would be no, not at all.
As somebody who's canceled myself twice already this this podcast, I should say it's a nice party. It's not necessarily a better party than the Free Party.
Oh, Mickey.
It's another party that is maybe a little looser, but how could you get looser than we're already being?
Mickey, fortunately, it's too late for you to go into marketing because you would not have done well.
And do I take off my shirt and show my Superman logo? Is that what I do? No, I don't do that.
No, that would also not be good marketing.
Well, you don't know, Bob.
I got a hunch. So wait,
I haven't had a lot to do here in quarantine except work out.
Mickey. Also in the Parrot Room, I think I know vaguely, at least generally, what the subject of the next great right-wing conspiracy theory is going to be. It's related to January 6th, but not in a way you can probably guess. Maybe you can.
It was a setup.
No, it's weirder. It's weird, and I don't know exactly where it's heading, but they're starting to beat the drums on this. I'll get into that. Also,
I do know people are saying it was a setup.
Oh, I tweeted that immediately, before Trump had tweeted about Pence. Just about, I said I can already see them saying that the Capitol Police let them in on purpose so that we could then vilify them.
The FBI knew all along. Well, I guess this ties in.
It's related. They let it happen.
The FBI knew all along that this was going to happen, and they let it happen. Yeah.
Right. Well, this is vaguer than that. It's just kind of a locus of the. It could ultimately tie into that. It's consistent. It's potentially consistent with that. Yeah. Also, I've unearthed an email that bears critically on a heated debate that's been happening in the Parrot Room, but I won't say anything more than that. And look, I would hate for people to sign up for the Parrot Room at patreon.com/Parrot Room just because of cheap teases like this. I would hate that.
Okay, well, I look forward to it. I'll be there.
The funny thing is, I'm not even like this. I'm not like the marketing type. You know that. I'm not. But reality...
We know you're not the marketing type.
I'm not.
If you succeed, it will be despite your marketing
Right.
skills.
I'm the mock marketing type. This is meta. Okay. So we'll see you there, though?
Yes.
All right. You want to show them the parrot? Do they get to even see the parrot without going to the Parrot Room? I forget what our policy is on this.
I think we tease the parrot. See you later.
Oh, boy. Why did they even bother with all the other appeals when you got stuff like that, when you got material like that to lure people in? Okay. Yeah, okay. See ya.